I was delighted that there was a woman in the midst of it, because I think there was a lot going on behind closed doors of what it means to live with a fighter, be with a fighter, the all-consuming world of that. And I got to know Dawn well, and she was very generous with her story with me, the full weather system of it, the regrets, the eruptions, the hazardous nature of the relationship at times, and the deep, profound love and devotion they had to each other amidst an impossible environment. So I think it was an incredibly exciting relationship to put on screen. I think I had been a part of a lot of relationships that essentially are more curated to a movie-fied relationship, and this just felt like the full spectrum of what a relationship really looks like, because human beings change within the hour, and I think we got to show that, a mood, a shift, a vibe can change within a couple within an hour, and it was just exciting to be able to work like that with Benny's visceral way of shooting that was so spontaneous. So it was just like the guardrails came off for us every day, and I worked with my dear friend who, it was one of the most extraordinary things, seeing him completely disappear, like spooky for all of us. I remember when he walked in as Mark for the first time, like changed the air in the room. It was like everyone parted, everyone went very quiet. I'm sure that sucked for you, but it was, it was really extraordinary.
I feel like the film it's not about fighting. Even fighting just happens to be what he did. And he, at one time, Stephen, he was the greatest fighter on the planet. It's a love story, and it's a love story about Mark and Dawn in this relationship, and it's a love story about Mark and the love that he had for the thing that he did, and his struggle with trying to deliver, and his overcoming his challenges. As Mark knows, as we know, Mark, he OD'd twice, and he's lucky to be alive, and that's why one of the many reasons why the story is special. And I will say that the relationship part, the transformation part rather, was something I was really hungry to do. I had been very fortunate to have the career that I've had over the years and make the films that I've made. But there was just voice inside of me, the little voice that, well, what if I could do more? And I want to do more. And what does that look like? And from the beginning, from the time we worked on Jungle Cruise together, she really encouraged and believed in me and said, there's a place that you can put all the stuff that you have gone through as a kid. And I'm very close with Emily and shared a lot of everything that I've gone through. And she goes, and that place is what you love to do, which is acting. And you have me, let's do this together. And then Benny was on the other side of that saying, hey, I got you both, and let's go for it. So that transformation could not have happened without, my best friend being there to support and encourage and just say, you can do it, and also I got you. And Benny, so thank you, both. Love you both. What I believe in my heart that Mark learned, and I could say this with a little bit of confidence, is because I've become very close to Mark, and he's here, and he's shared this with me and with Emily and with Benny about the thing that he learned. In the beginning of the movie, Mark has always talked about, how before you get ready to do something that's important to you and that's big to you and it means a lot to you, you have butterflies. It's like when we were standing backstage coming out, we all had butterflies. It's that thing. Mark had those butterflies before every fight. And Mark also talked about that could become addicting, the feeling to that. And in the beginning for Mark, who is a walking contradiction of a man who was at one time the greatest fighter on the planet, but also the most kind, gentle, tender, empathetic. Benny came up with the term radical empathy is what Mark Kerr is and what he embodies. So this idea, in the beginning, he was fighting to survive and fighting to make money and fighting to make something of himself. But by the end, what Mark realized after his struggles with addiction, after his struggles in his relationship with Dawn, he doesn't win the big thing he's going after. And not only does he lose, but in a way he loses everything. And it's okay. And life goes on, and you move on, which is one of the reasons why Benny, I thought, really beautifully showed, without giving it away, Mark at the end, and how important that was seeing him. Well, I'm so happy you brought that up about the music, by the way, because that's so signature, Benny Safdie and his music drops.
Yeah.
No, I think it's more about me. And what I mean by that is just internally. And I have for a long time wanted this. And, you know, we have talked, the three of us have talked for a very, very long time about, you know, when you're in Hollywood, as we all know, and it had become about box office, and you chase the box office. And the box office in our business that we know is very loud, and it can be very resounding, and it could push you into a category and into a corner, and this is your lane, and this is what you do, and this is what people want you to be, and this is what Hollywood wants you to be. And I understood that, and I made those movies, and I liked them, and they were fun, and some were really good and did well, and some not so good. But I think what I did realize is that the most important thing, I just had this burning desire and this just voice that was saying, well, again, what if? But what if there is more? And what if I can? And a lot of times it's harder for us to, or at least for me, sometimes to know what you're capable of when you've been pigeonholed into something. It's harder to know, wait, can I do that? I feel like I can. It's harder to know that, to know what you're capable of. And sometimes it takes people who you love and you respect, like Emily and Benny, to say, you can, and this is it. And then let's go create this thing, and let's go create that other thing. So I don't think it's anything to prove to Hollywood as much as it's just for me now. And the truth is, I looked around a few years ago, and I started to think, I shared this with these guys, is that, you know, am I living my dream, or am I living other people's dreams? And, you know, you come to that recognition, and I think you could either fall in line and, well, it's status quo, things are good, I don't want to rock the boat, or go, no, I want to live my dreams now and do what I want to do and tap into the stuff that I want to tap into, and I have a place finally to put all this stuff that I've experienced in the past that I've shied away from. I've been scared to go deep and intense and raw until now, until I had this opportunity to do this. It was the opportunity to grow. You know, I loved wrestling, and I had such a great time being a wrestler in that performative aspect. But it's also very bombastic, and it's very over the top, and it's very, you know, broadcasty, and so the crowds were great. I love connecting with the crowds. But also, what was interesting is back then, when I was wrestling, especially in the late 90s, that's when I met Mark Kerr for the first time. And he was this hero to all of us, who was this man who, especially as a heavyweight, he was so dominant. And I remember talking to Mark back then and being just so enamored and out of respect for his career. And it's so wild how here we are years later, and how life can come in full circle in this incredible way. So I think one of the dynamic things about Mark Kerr is just that, is he is this walking contradiction of a man who is, and also just physically back then, Mark, and now too, he's very imposing, but he also had this silhouette that was very unique to Mark Kerr. And in the beginning, Benny...
I cannot believe I even asked. But I said, Dwayne, I think you need to get a little, and I was like, how do I say this? Bigger, puffier, you know? And then you just were like, okay. And
was very specific training, because if you think about it, Mark as a amateur wrestler, there's movements that he would do constantly all day that would just build certain fast twitch muscles that, you know, I'm in my fifth level of life. I just like when Benny Safdie says, hey, I need you to, okay, I'll try it. But you know, he is also this contradiction that Mark is, but he's also a beautiful soul and very incredibly caring and gentle and kind, and looks through life through this lens of being like a childlike curiosity. It's just really beautiful. You saw when he stood up, he had tears in his eyes, and he's very overwhelmed by this. But so I guess I'm kind of, yeah, because we're both softies, everybody, and Benny too as well.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think it's a really fantastic backdrop for a story of specifically male vulnerability. I think it's because it was such that era of 90s machismo, the invincibility of man, the kind of prowess of man, and I think you really see it amplified in this arena of MMA, UFC, just sort of exerting strength upon each other. And then yet, you know, this movie was never about the guy with his fist in the air. It was about the fallout afterwards and how they were cracked apart by having to maintain that image that is unrealistic for anyone, no matter your size, no matter your strength. And I think Benny was really interested in that how can we empathize with someone who appears to be so invincible, but is tender on the inside, struggles, is in pain, but has to keep this front up. You know, it's an aching movie in that way.
Also, too, I'm so sorry, really quickly, I just want to point out is something I think that's important, is that what Emily represents in the movie is also this idea of sacrifice. So sure, the fighters sacrifice. They win, they lose. Good things happen, bad things happen, but also the loved ones sacrifice too as well, but in a very different way. And what you found is, you know, Emily in this relationship, how she was able just to bring out the just raw humanity of Dawn, who she got to know very well and has become friends with. But also, just from my vantage point, we've talked about this, I saw this. Like I saw my dad, if you guys don't know, I come from a line of professional wrestlers. And my dad was a pro wrestler before the big wrestling boom. And I know what it's like to watch the woman that he loves, watch the man that she's committed to fall in line and sacrifice her own life and her dreams for Mark's and for my dad's. And that's what Emily represents in this too as well. And you don't hear that a lot. You don't see that a lot about the wives and the girlfriends or the husbands and the loved ones. And I thought Emily just did a beautiful, brilliant job of that raw portrayal of a woman who was by Mark's side and at that time was his greatest love. And if I could say, you know, Benny he talks about the fighting in the ring and his approach filmmaking-wise to shooting it. The same could be said for our scenes where we fought and the fight happens at home. The house was built very specifically to hide the cameras, and that was one of the things I feel like in the big final fight that happens between Mark and Dawn. We didn't see a camera, you didn't see a lighting setup. It was just the house and just us, and we were there. And which lent itself to just living in the moment and being, as Benny said, as real as it can be. I don't think my dad was an inspiration in terms of his tenderness. It wasn't really my dad. He was homeless by the time he was 13, so his capacity for love was very limited, and that's the man that raised me. It's tough love, but I think the what Mark lived with for a very long time. And I think in some ways, you know, it's why he's beautiful. He works his way through this stuff is there's also a tremendous amount of shame involved. And I think, and I think that's what my dad lived with for a long time. I think, and then my dad suddenly passed away a few years ago, 2020. So I think that he was a man who struggled, my dad, but also the part that inspired me playing Mark Kerr wasn't the shame part, because we all deal with that. It was more, I'm hungry for something and I want to go after it, and I believe in this thing and I'm going to put in the work to get it done and to do it with my own two hands. That's what Mark Kerr does, and that's what my dad did. Thank you for the question, by the way, because I always want to try to do my best to, you know, like remember the good stuff, you know.
Yeah.